After weeks of agony in hospital with inflammation of the brain, 5-year-old Shane Townsend now has reason to smile. That reason is a new pet budgerigar. Shane is the first recipient of a budgie from a special aviary built in the grounds of the new Ronald McDonald House at the John Hunter Hospital. The $8,000 aviary was officially opened by the Newcastle Budgerigar Club's president, Gary Gazzard, and the Lady Mayoress, Margaret McNaughton. The 150 birds put into the aviary by the Budgie Club are intended to chirp up the sick children staying at Ronald McDonald House. When the young patients are well enough to go home, they can take with them a budgie of their choice. Shane picked a green bird to accompany him home to Nabiac. But what's in store for Shane and his new feathered friend?
Take him home.
And?
I don't know.
The ALP may not have won last month's New South Wales elections, but as leader Bob Carr has repeatedly proclaimed, Labor did win back its heartland, the Hunter.
We've just come back to say thank you to the people of the Hunter for voting for us.
Congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you very much.
In their own words, many Labor Party members and voters are both conservative and loyal. But in the Hunter, that conservatism and loyalty extends beyond the party itself. It extends to showing a willingness to leave power in the hands of a few families, for the mantle to be shared by brothers or to be handed down from father to son. This trend of political power being kept in the family has prompted claims of nepotism.
I can remember Gough Whitlam referring to the Hunter region and the politicians in the Hunter region there over the last 50 or 60 years there in the same vein. So it has been utilised previously.
Would you call it nepotism?
I could have used a better description, a better word.
Well, what would you call it?
Well, I believe there that it's just been experience following experience.
Experience following experience. Generation following generation. Even if we look back only as far as who our parents voted for, the Hunter has had 6 families dominating seats in this region. In the federal arena, brothers Peter and Alan Morris are in the seats of Shortland and Newcastle. Before Alan was the MHR for Newcastle, Charlie Jones held the seat. Charlie's brother Sam was the state member for Waratah for almost 19 years. Until the early 1980s, the so-called Jones faction ruled the ALP in Newcastle for the best part of 20 years. In the federal seat of Hunter, Bert James was the member for 20 years. Before Bert, his father Rolly held the seat for 30 years, stretching back to 1928. That's half a century of power in the hands of one family. In state politics, Ken Booth was the MLA for Wallsend for 28 years until his death in 1988. Ken's father George held the same seat, then called Kurri Kurri, for 35 years. While the Booth name may no longer be in state parliament, there are still signs that the electorate hasn't forgotten it. Today, the family trees in the Hunter continue to grow. Stan Neely has returned from 3 years in the wilderness to re-emerge as the Labor MLA for Cessnock. In doing so, he's restored the Neely family's links with the seat. Not only was Stan the member from 1981 to 1988, his father George held the seat from 1959 to 1978. And now a new political family, the Hunters in the seat of Lake Macquarie. 31-year-old Jeff has been the MLA for Lake Macquarie for about a month since winning at the polls in the May election. But Jeff has been in politics most of his life. A member of the ALP's Wangi branch since 1975, Secretary of the State Electorate Council for the past 10 years, and his father Merv was the Lake Macquarie MLA for 22 years before retiring and making way for Jeff. Yet while this safe Labor seat is now in the hands of a second-generation Hunter, Jeff says his father never planned for him to follow Merv into politics.
No, my father didn't mention it at all. It was in my brain, and I probably felt a bit scared to mention it with my father. seeking his approval was a hard thing, but he thought that I had the talent to do it, and once I discussed it with him, he said yes, give it a go.
Jeff maintains his decision to enter politics predates his father's move to retire.
Probably goes back 5 or 6 years ago. I was very interested in politics, and I thought that in the future I'd like to get into state politics. And then my father made the decision that he was reaching the age of 65, he should retire, and I saw the opportunity then to put my name forward for pre-selection.
The catchword Jeff cites for explaining how he became the Lake Macquarie member is not dad or Merv, but pre-selection. In other words, how someone is chosen by the party to represent the party at the polls. The ALP's pre-selection methods vary from state to state, which is why the party is considering the possibility of a uniform pre-selection process. In New South Wales, the rank and file theoretically get to choose who is put forward as a candidate. But the rank and file pre-selection process has plenty of critics within the party. Former Labor Prime Minister Gough Whitlam recently wrote in an article that the problem with the rank and file system is that it awards the palm to those who have the time, talents and inclination to concentrate on getting their relatives and friends into a dominant position in each local branch. Margaret Henry was an ALP member for 23 years before quitting, disenchanted and disgusted, just before the 1988 elections. Ms Henry asserts that the Hunter has been the scene of what she calls dynastic and feudal politics.
In a party that claims to be egalitarian and radical, that we've got this tradition of brothers from the same family being members and sons succeeding fathers. And we've got the Morris brothers, the Jones brothers previously. We've got the Booth father and son, Neely father and son, Hunter father and son.
Ms Henry alleges that the pre-selection process had shown itself in the past to be open to rorts.
I felt that there'd been an undue attempt by the right-wing machine to influence the voting, and there were really improper practices widely believed to being used in those pre-selection ballots.
What do you mean by improper practices?
I don't want to go into the details particularly, but it was widely rumoured that there were stacking of branches and so on, and there seemed to be evidence for that.
But Ms Henry says it's not only the branch who helps push a candidate through. She alleges the heavy hand of the New South Wales ALP has also played its part.
I feel that the New South Wales right-wing machine has a great deal to answer for. They've been more concerned with putting people into state and federal parliament who will vote for them. It's got very little to do with policy. And I feel that we've had a procession of very lacklustre people in state parliament and in federal parliament, and really capable members have been passed over.
Jeff Hunter says he won his pre-selection over 2 other candidates fairly and squarely, and on his own merits, not on his father's.
ALP members aren't going to elect you because they're your friend or you're the son of the Member of Parliament. These people are keenly interested in politics, and they want someone who will represent them well in Parliament.
Like Jeff Hunter, Cessnock MLA Stan Neely says he supports the rank-and-file pre-selection system. He says it's the most democratic way for a party to choose its candidates. Yet, ironically, Mr Neely was not elected by the rank-and-file to stand at the elections, but was nominated from above by the New South Wales party machine.
I believe that the determination by the Labor Party head office in New South Wales to give me endorsement, although personally unexpected, was a reflection of their view as to how a rank-and-file pre-selection ballot would have been run and won by myself.
By telephone, Laurie Daly, the State ALP's Assistant General Secretary, said Mr Neely was nominated by head office for 2 reasons. The prospect of boundary changes meant there simply wasn't time for a pre-selection vote. And secondly, Mr Neely was considered by Sydney to be the most likely to win pre-selection anyway. Mr Neely admits some members were disturbed that they were deprived of the right to vote for who represented the party.
All branches within the electorate were disturbed. They have conveyed their views to the head office in Sydney, advising head office that they still subscribe to the rank-and-file pre-selection system. They don't want it to be a precursor here as far as the future is concerned. Some of the branch members there chose not to give me help on election day in pursuit of their beliefs, that there should be rank and file election of a candidate. Their determination wasn't animosity against myself personally, but it's sincere and genuine upholding of their own views.
What also disturbed some members was that the nomination of Mr Neely blocked out another candidate considered to be excellent, Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan. But Sam Neely has been given that rare second bite at the political cherry. By the Labor caucus, he's been called a Lazarean, and by his Cessnock constituents...
I occasionally get called George by some of the older identities.
The son of George Neely says it doesn't matter who is the Member of Parliament, as long as he or she does the job well.
It's the person most competent to do the job that counts as far as the bulk of the public are concerned. And certainly there won't be any Neely following myself. I'm the last in the pack.
Margaret Henry believes that the new member for Newcastle, Bryce Gaudry, is a hopeful sign for the Hunters' politics.
I think Newcastle got a very good member. Bryce Gaudry, I think, I'm sure he'll be a very good member for Newcastle.
But Ms Henry and some members of the Labor rank and file are concerned that after the dispute this week of head office advising a position switch on the aldermanic tickets for next month's council elections, the issues surrounding pre-selection have not been settled.
But it just shows that the ALP still has to be vigilant. Those bully boys at the head office of the ALP are still prepared to step in and try to throw their weight around.